It's working. All right. So looks like looks like we're live. Okay. So hi. Welcome to the Node.js tooling group meeting. What do we got going on today? So the first thing here on the agenda I have is RimRaf stuff. And so Brian has been busy with some stuff. And last I heard from him, he was going to maybe take a look at some of this. I don't know if he has or what, but Brian, what do you think?
Right. So, yeah, like I mentioned to you earlier, it's been a rough couple of months for me in terms of getting things outside of my personal life done. So, no, I have not had a chance to really take any look at that. However, I was just looking at the thread this morning, and it looks like there was some discussion, um, with Sam Roberts about maybe just sort of taking in Isaac's RimRaf module.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a pretty compelling idea. I mean, there's a lot of the edge cases have been dealt with, things like that. So I think it's a pretty great start. My only concern with that would be its dependency on glob. I don't think glob really has a place inside Node at this point.
Mm.
That being said, pretty much the rest of it, so just basically not supporting globs and only supporting like real paths, that should work just fine. So yeah, we wouldn't be able to take it as is, but we should be able to massage it into something that is acceptable as a thing inside Node.js. That may be something that can be done. The Of course, whenever a module is taken from user land and put inside Node, there's a licensing question. And so I think what that means, because this has been done before, if I understand correctly, I think what this means is that the Node.js license file needs to be amended with the license file from RimRaf when it was taken in.
Given that, you mentioned glob, I mean, I don't see that code is actually going to be coming over verbatim, right?
That's right, but I mean, even modifications of the code, like anything that's still there, is still subject to the licensing.
All right. Well, okay. So let me write that down. Licensing. And so, in your mind, then, so whatever. I don't remember what Sam said. Only what he told me. Otherwise, which was something about some stuff about C that I don't understand, essentially. And so he suggests, yeah, let's go ahead and you might be just better off doing it in JavaScript. And sounds like that sounds good. I think that sounds good to me too. I mean,
yeah, I can summarize that real quick if that's helpful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, Raphael was bringing forward a function provided in C++17 that would basically do most of the work for us. The problem with that is that C++17 isn't available on all of Node's target platforms, as I understand. That's the first thing. So basically, we'd be stuck using, some older methods in C++. Now, the problem with that, again, is that we may not get any performance benefit of doing that versus doing it ourselves in JavaScript based on what the implementation happens to be in some C++. So it could be platform dependent. It could be how the spec is defined or whatever. It may be the case that we're just not going to get any performance benefit out of using those built-in functions as opposed to going at it ourselves.
Right.
Right. So that's why Sam was like saying, as I understand, don't want to put too many words in Sam's mouth here, but as I understand, that's why he was saying that it may be better off just taking Isaac's RimRaf module.
All right. As far as I know, I don't think Isaac would have any objection to that. But so is that? Do you want to follow up with Isaac then, or?
Yeah, yeah, I can do that.
Or I mean, I don't want to give you work to do. If you want to do that,
No. That's no. It's certainly worth taking forward. So yeah, I'll take a look. I'll follow up with Isaac.
Okay. If not, I think Ben has talked to him before about this sort of thing,
Sure.
so might even just be easier for him to do that. But
Right.
I don't know. We'll powwow offline, I guess.
Right. Sounds good.
Okay.
If we need help porting the actual code, I'm willing to volunteer to help with that. That might not be happening for a little while here, but
okay. Thank you. All right. So this might be a shorter meeting. So I don't think there's anything. Is there anything on the userland shims happening? I know that. Okay, so first, is there anything that needs a shim that we should worry about off the top of anybody's head? I'm sure there are. Just kind of question of how important is it? But anything coming down the pipe, you know, is a worker thread shim that actually just uses like cluster or child processes. Is that worth doing? Does anybody have anything else that they know of? Sounds like no. All right. So yeah, I do know that the project seemed to be kind of hung up on this whole idea around namespacing stuff, and it would be really good to get that sorted out. But that doesn't mean that we are blocked on it. But if there's any feature that's coming out, I think would if we use the same. If we use roughly the same API that RimRaf provides, for example, then we don't actually need to provide a shim because RimRaf is just shim, right?
you mean like userland rimraf is the shim?
Yes.
Right, because the rimraf does provide like a command line utility, which we probably wouldn't directly in Node, right? Like it would only be used via the API in Node itself.
Right.
So rimraf, the userland package, would be the shim that would give you the bin link, basically.
Right, the bin link and also an implementation for older versions of Node.
Right.
Right. And then we would maybe need to go back and say, hey, can you change this to use native rimraf if it's present? We'd have to send that pull request to Isaac or whatever. And again, I feel like Ben mentioned some of this to him before, and I don't think that would be, it didn't sound like he was opposed to doing that. So anyway, let me write down a little bit about okay. So and I added this this next thing moving on. I added this like yesterday. Issue number 19. And I might be able to just throw that in the chat here. I don't know how to do that. How do I do that? Oh, there it is. Okay. So I just put the link to the issue in the chat. So I wanted to start thinking about argument parsing. I think we've made noises about it before. I guess the main idea is that there really is nothing in Node, and if you want to look at the arguments, you are stuck using process argv slice 2 essentially, and then iterating over that array in however you see fit. So, other similar technologies to Node have some built-in stuff. I don't know how prevalent it is. I do know that Python used to have, or I guess it's deprecated, opt parse, and then eventually arg parse. I think is the thing now, arg parse, which is some different API. I really don't know how it differs otherwise, but yeah. So I think Node could provide a little more in the way of nice things for people who want to accept arguments on the command line. In this issue, I mention, there are a million different ways to do it. There's a lot of different, strategies as far as, what certain things look like, what happens when an option has an option, how do you format different types of things, how much do we have to worry about? Everybody has an idea about how they want to do it, and there's certain conventions that are more present in one place versus the other. And so, whatever we come up with, if we want to, push this forward, it's not going to make everybody happy. It's my hope that if you, for instance, if there's somebody in core or a collaborator or somebody looking at this code and they're like, no, I don't like that. Hopefully they would say, yes, but I don't really need to use it, and nobody really needs to use it. You can use it if you want, but we're just not going to make everybody happy here. I think out of necessity, there needs to be some opinion that such an argument parsing module would take. Maybe we try to limit those opinions and not take too many extra ones, but it's going to have to be opinionated because that's kind of the nature of the problem. When I started thinking about this, and it was, well, maybe this should just look like, I don't know who's familiar with Yarg's parser, but it's this little part of Yarg's which does the actual argument parsing and returns an object, with keys for the argument names and the values and such. And it doesn't do all these fancy things like help output, for example, that Yarg's does. At first I was thinking, well, we don't want to be in the business of generating help output. That seems ridiculous. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, who writes a command line app that takes arguments that doesn't want some sort of help output? And while it seems like maybe, I don't know, it just seems like it's half an implementation without taking those argument definitions and providing some sort of help output. But obviously, that's why I'm bringing it to the group. I want to talk about it and discuss. So, and then there's some questions about naming. But what do you all think here on the call? What do you think of another potentially adding a module to Node Core that would provide some argument parsing type stuff?
So I think for me, one thing that would concern me about a more heavy-handed implementation, something akin to Yarg's or Commander or something like that, would be that there's all kinds of ideas that people have of what things like, for example, help output, or even what command line options should be formatted as are, right? Like,
Yes.
or things like whether ordering matters. So I think because the opinions and the implementations, even across implementations, such as like from Commander to Minimus to Yards or whatever, they can vary quite wildly. I concerns about doing a very like high level approach and trying to be feature complete akin to those tools. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. My counterexample would be argparse does this. It's built into Python. Why couldn't we do that?
Right. Right.
Is there maybe some kind of like middle ground, like rather than providing a full implementation like Commander or something like that, could we just provide some low-level pieces that a library like Yargs or Commander could take advantage of, or people could also use themselves when building command line tools? Something better than just process.argv.slice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at minimum that's what we need. Is please, don't make me do this myself. Take the arguments and give me like, keys and values, because that's what I need. And that's what everybody needs when they parse arguments. So, I mean, I feel like that's the absolute bare minimum. And maybe that's what we should shoot for. It's just that, yes, I agree that everybody has different ideas about what help output should look like, how things should be formatted, but you're still going to need it. And so that's why I feel like we should really consider it. I feel like that's kind of a tall order because of simply just the culture around Node and Node Core, and I can see that getting a lot of pushback as overreaching. But again, I don't think I'm wrong. I mean, you're gonna want help output, but
I mean, there could be a case to be made that if it's configurable enough, it can generate the output that's, whatever output you like. If it's configurable enough, something like, something akin to the custom inspect hooks, things like that kind of thing, or perhaps exactly that thing. That might be a way to generalize it enough that it's acceptable, like on that front. Another thing that comes to mind is I was just thinking about argument ordering. There are many tools in existence, not just in Node, but outside of Node, that where the argument order is very important. Now, I mean, I'm just looking at the like the README from Minimist right now, and it gives us a nice object full of all the parameters provided, and it preserves ordering as well, because yay, JavaScript today preserves ordering in objects, so that's cool. So I mean, yeah, we get a lot of the way there with something like Minimist.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Sorry, I just had another thought, pulling it back into the question about help output. Complicating that is that it's not so easy to print help output. As far as I know, we don't have things in Node that do, essentially print columns and stuff in on the command line. So if you're going to have help output, it's going to be formatted, and it's going to have sections and indents and justification and all that, and there's nothing in Node to do that. And so yeah.
I believe something was recently added to console that might actually be helpful there.
Mm-hmm.
Console.table.
Console.table.
Yep.
So Anyhow, yeah. So it just kind of you got to worry about window sizes and all sorts of things. So yeah, the help stuff is meh. It would be cool to I don't know, allow for some sort of customization there, but again, I feel like it's beyond the bare minimum. So would you then think that something like what Minimus provides is roughly then what we should be shooting for, or is that still too much?
I think I would see it as kind of the minimum. I don't know, could be way off there though.
All right. Guy posted another package in the issue called arg, which looks like another very simple. Actually, this is quite simple. Argument parser, but yeah. So, are we in agreement then that this is a good idea?
I mean, I think it is. Certainly providing something more than we do now would be nice.
Right.
Yeah, I think making sure that of the tools we know of, that whatever we create here can actually be used to underlie any of these libraries. I think that's sort of the key we should aim for. Like, what is the common set of functionality we need to do?
Right. Yeah, I agree, and I know Ben has some opinions on this as well. But I'm sure we can solicit those.
It would be nice if it was also usable on its own. Like, I agree that it makes sense that we want to provide something that a library could take advantage of, but it would also be nice if it was useful enough that I could use it on its own. Like, if I was making a simple script that took 1 or 2 arguments, it'd be great if I could just use these built-in methods rather than having to pull in an entire library.
Yeah.
So I think maybe those are kind of the 2 use cases or audiences we're going for.
I mean, I guess that's what I was shooting for. I mean, Brian, do you see it differently?
I don't. I agree with all that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So what should we do next then? Essentially, somebody should make something, I'm gonna guess. We could just make a userland package for now, to kind of play around with it, maybe, instead of jumping right into the PR.
I think maybe even just kind of talking about what this might look like what the API might look like, even.
Yeah, we could. I'm not really sure how to lead a discussion about that. I mean, I'm not really sure how to lead discussions in the first place, but I'm not sure how to lead discussions about, like, what should this API look like.
Maybe just in the issue you created, we could.
Yes, that's probably going to be where it's going to have to happen. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's. I mean, certainly, if anybody has suggestions on what it should look like, that would be awesome. But I feel like it's one of those things that people aren't going to be entirely sure about until they actually, like, have it in front of them. And that's why I was like, well, we should just start building stuff and play with it and kind of. I think it's just really important to draw the lines around this and say this is the scope, and we want to we don't want to go beyond this particular scope, and this is why. If we're going to draw lines, and we need to be able to explain this is why we're drawing the line where we're drawing it. And I think that'll be good. It'll certainly be easier to argue our case for adding something like this. Also, naming it might be tough, and so it's and I think this is the problem with the namespace stuff, is that if I want to add a new module to Node Core, well, is that going to conflict with the userland module? And the answer is generally yes. So, what do we call this new thing? How do we approach that? What I would like to not happen is be in this place where we're all ready to go, but we can't merge it because it conflicts with the userland package, or people are bike shedding about what to do about namespaces. So I don't know what the most recent what's the most recent built-in module that was added. Was it worker threads? But it's I would like to kind of go back and take a look and see if there are any concerns around that, and like what the current state of adding new built-ins to Node looks like, because I would hate to get blocked or tripped up just because of an issue like that, where it's not so much about the implementation, it's just that naming things are hard. So I'll go ahead and do some research about like the current state of naming things, unless anybody knows that off the top of their head, and the current state of like what adding a new module to Node looks like, and I will report back. All right, so so go ahead and if anybody would like to comment on what what they think an API for this sort of thing should look like, I encourage you to go into tooling issues number 19 and dump your brain and let me know what you think. So, does anybody have anything else they would like to talk about right now? If not, I think we can probably end a little early because we have some things to do, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to point out that I would really want to hear from Ben before going too much further on the arc parsing issue. Right.
So I have talked, I've kicked this idea around with him a little bit. He said, something like Yarg's parser. Which seems like what I would expect him to say. So yeah, but no, I do really want I want Ben to chime in on this for sure. And maybe he wants to implement it, maybe not. I don't know. I think he's still kind of working on his code coverage, and he probably wants to get into source maps and stuff like that. So but yeah, I'll definitely nag him about leaving a comment here. All right. So unless does anybody have anything else? If not, then I think I'm gonna call it. Sounds like not. Okay. Well, thanks for showing up, everybody, and yeah. Please leave your feedback on tooling issues number 19. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See ya.